And watching that transformation is unreal. So that's one of my favorite parts of the job, is watching the students develop and transition into this world of like professionalism. Is one of the coolest pieces. Organization is key.
Yeah.
You have to stay organized. Managing 200 students, it takes a lot of organization, and it takes staying on top of that to be able to be good at this job.
Welcome to the Job Dictionary podcast. Today, I will be interviewing Kaulin Andric on what it's like to be an assistant director of intramural sports. Thank you, Kaulin, for joining us.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
And just like to start, we have 3 questions we always like to start with. So in your own words, what do you do?
Yeah, I program sports for college kids, essentially is what I do. But I'm also a counselor to a lot of the students that I supervise. So in short words, I program sports for college kids and train officials.
Awesome. And where are you located?
I work at Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas.
And then when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Like everybody, I wanted to play professional sports. Baseball was the goal. And then as I got a little older and figured out that wasn't going to happen, I wanted to be in the med field, and then college happened, and I said that's not a thing. And so I ended up wanting to be a firefighter was the end goal, and ended up in an office programming sports for college kids.
Weird trajectory,
Yeah,
but it all works out.
it
How
does.
long have you been working as in the intramural sports for A&M?
Yeah, so I started here in 2019 as a graduate assistant, and did that for 2 years, and then in 2019 was lucky enough to stay on as a full time staff member. So I've been here full time since 2019, which is about 5 years now.
And what made you get into this field? You kind of hit on it, but
Yeah, back in undergrad, I got involved with the intramural sports program, and officiated some sports on campus, and just fell in love with officiating, and figured out that this was a route that I could go, and ended up just pursuing it and fell in love with it.
and what did you study in college?
Yeah. Nothing to do with what I do now. I was a turf grass management major, so in the
What does
College of
that look
Agriculture.
like?
So growing grass and doing all those things. The end goal out of that was to be a sports turf manager at like a Major League Baseball stadium. So I got that for my bachelor's, and then my master's was here at A&M, with the Recreation Parks and Tourism Sciences department.
Super cool. And then are there any degrees or certifications truly required to get your job?
No, and that's what's so cool about it. Like at the end of the day, when we get together as professionals all around the country, there are so many different backgrounds of what people studied and what people went to school for. That there is no actual like, hey, you have to have this degree to be in this field, and that's what's so cool about
And with that, what are some specific tasks you spend the majority of your day doing?
it. Yeah, so my days now consist of more on the admin side of things. So looking over reports from the students from the night before, filling out some forms for business offices and things like that. But the two biggest pieces of my job are customer service. So this is a pretty forward-facing program, in a sense. We support about 14,000 college kids a
Wow.
semester. They take part in our program, and it's one of the largest. So being forward-facing and being able to answer questions, answer phones, things like that. And then the student development side of things. So along with our 14,000 students that we program for, we have about 200 that we supervise, that work for us. And so their development is at the forefront of our decisions every single day. And so student development is a big piece in what we do.
Super cool. And like kind of going off that, what parts of your job are the most exciting and interesting to you?
The students, it's awesome. No, watching them come in as a freshman or a sophomore, and not knowing how to officiate, or not really having a lot of life skills at that point, to
Yeah.
then transition to their junior and senior year when they end up graduating. And watching that transformation is unreal. And so that's one of my favorite parts of the job, is watching the students develop, and transition into this world of like
Yeah.
professionalism. Is one of the coolest pieces.
And on the other hand, what part of your job is the most hard, emotionally challenging, or boring?
Maybe two answers. One, I just talked about how awesome it is with students. Also, the students are the hard and the emotional part. Just what
Yeah.
being here, and I touched on this a little earlier, being the counselor in a sense. There are students that come into this office every single day with things, um, that
Yeah.
that I haven't struggled with, or that I don't have personal that I'm not personally like being able to help them with. And so
Right.
that's a challenging part of this job. The good thing is that the boring piece of this job, there isn't. We do a really good job um, transitioning our program and keeping up with
Yeah.
trends. That there really is no boring part of the job. Things do get monotonous, especially during
Right.
lulls in a semester. Um, but in a sense of being boring, it's not at all.
What is your favorite intramural sport?
Flag football, especially on the co-rec side of things, where males and females play together. There's so
Yeah.
much more like strategy that goes into that part of the
Right.
game that a lot of people don't realize. So if you can play the game right, it's really fun. Um, but that's like the one that's like more strategic thinking. The one just fun to play, I would probably say sand volleyball. It's a lot more casual. You can go
Yeah.
do it with friends. It can be self officiated at times. So yeah, I would say those two.
Awesome. We have some rapid fire questions. So what is a day in the life like in terms of wake up time, start time, and breaks?
Yeah. So we're super flexible here, which is awesome. Wake up. I'm usually up by like 6:30, 7 o'clock. Have some me time, and then I'm in by like 8:30 or 9. So that's a start time is like 8:39 ish, and then an end time is make your own. It's
Yeah.
usually anywhere from like 4:30 now with a kid. So I'm leaving at 4:30 to go pick up from daycare or 5 o'clock. But a lot of the younger professionals in this field will stay after because we program
Yeah.
from 5 to midnight.
Wow.
So being able to see our students, an end time is usually around 6 or 7. Breaks throughout the day. I usually take one big one. It usually involves lunch and a workout. So that's usually about an hour and a half or so.
Yeah.
That's usually during the middle of the day ish somewhere.
And would you say it's slow or fast paced?
The day goes by quickly, which is good, and it you feel accomplished at the end of the day. So I would argue that it's fast paced, um, but you feel accomplished because you've
Right.
done so much.
Um, and then percent of the time doing solo work versus like collaborative efforts with the team.
Solo work is probably about 60 to 65%, and then the 35 to 40 is probably done in meetings and collaboration pieces.
Okay. What do you wear?
It's a great question.
Not the
I
fit.
like to call it
No.
athletic business. I don't know. Traditionally, it's just like a polo and either shorts or like golf pants and tennis shoes.
Right.
So it's not like this super professional tie everyday thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just polos, pullovers, and then athletic bottoms in a way.
So like a business casual, but like athletic.
Yeah, there it is. Business casual, but athletic. Athletic business casual. There it is.
Athletic business casual. And then which parts of the week, month or year are the busiest?
Weeks every week. No, but during the months and years, we've got some big times and we've got some lulls. The start of the semesters and the end of the semesters are always really busy for us because we're either trying to start a semester, get everybody back, start programs, do things, and at the end of the semester, we're trying to close everything out so that way we can prep for the new year. Um, and then our there's another busy time. It's kind of the middle of the semester when we transition from regular season games to playoff games. Those are always a big time in intramural sports because we're transitioning.
Right.
There's some lulls that kind of happen between the start and the middle, and then there's some lulls that happen between the middle and the end. But for the most part, we're busy almost all year round.
All the time. No, no breaks. All
No
gas, no
break.
breaks.
All gas, no break.
Do you work in an office? I mean, obviously you work in an office, but do you ever work hybridly or remote?
Yeah, we have the opportunity here at A&M to work hybridly in a way. So I have one day a week where I work from home, and that usually involves more of my online meeting days or like some big projecty things that I know I have to get done during the week. Go on that day because I can actually spend some time and not be bothered. I touched earlier that we're pretty forward facing, and so this office can get really busy at times. And so having a day like that to be able to kind of decompress and ultimately just grind
Yeah.
out some big projecty things is really nice.
And then I guess kind of hitting off that, are you able to leave all your work at the office or do you take it home? How do we?
Yeah, there's a lot of times where I've got my computer up at home, and it's just kind of like mundane, monotonous things,
Right,
catching up on things or whatnot. Um, as a GA in my younger years as a professional, I struggled with leaving work at work and taking it home. And
yeah,
so now with the family, I've done a little bit better of a job. But there are some things that I still take home to do because it's easy and I can
right.
access it from home.
And then do you think that this, you kind of already said it, but does the industry accommodate flexible hours?
Yeah, definitely. Most of us in the industry officiate on the outside.
Right,
So we work the 40 full-time hours, and then a lot of us will officiate on the outside. And so a lot of our bosses are super, super good with that. So we have very, very flexible hours. During the fall for football for me, I'm usually not in the office past like 2 or 3 o'clock on Fridays. But that means that I have to flex my hours back
yeah. You always
into
have to
work
hit your
weeks.
40.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So, or if we don't, we end up taking time off and it works out just
yeah.
like a normal job. But super, super, super flexible. And I think that's one of the great things about this job.
That's awesome. And then what are the major tools or technologies you use as part of your job?
Yeah. I mean, obviously Microsoft Office pieces, and then Google Drive are big, especially with that team collaborative piece,
Right,
being able to work on documents together and projects together. We utilize a software called IM Leagues, which essentially houses all of our programs, league schedules, everything. And then we utilize Slack and Teams to communicate either to professional staff or student staff. And so those are the kind of the biggest pieces that we use.
what do you think people underestimate about this profession?
How impactful we can be to students.
That's
Again, I
huge.
touched on it a little earlier. We have that student development piece, and for us, it's super, super, super impactful. The things they get out of this job, and I don't think people realize that unless they live it.
Right,
Um, I touched on earlier. What do you do? I program sports for college kids and supervise students.
yeah,
And so I think the underestimated piece is how much we do for students,
right.
and what they get out of it.
That's huge. It's like the impact that you can have on people.
Yeah,
And
for
then
sure.
I guess on the other hand, what do people overestimate about this profession? Like overhyped. What's overhyped about it?
Yeah, it's not necessarily an overhyped piece. It's just that people don't really understand that there's sports outside of athletics at a campus. And so a lot
Right.
of people, when I'm like, they're like, "Hey, what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm the assistant director for intramural sports. I program sports for college students." They're like, "Oh, so you can like get me into Kyle Field or like
No.
onto the football?" I'm like, "No, I don't deal with athletics in one slightest
Yeah.
bit. I'm actually completely separated from the athletics piece, and I think that's what's very underestimated about this job, or
Right.
like misconceived in a way."
Okay. And what is the fastest way to get like my foot in the door if I wanted to be a intramural sports director person?
Yeah, it's a niche group, and I will say that. At the end of the day, there are people that don't come from the the direct lineage of like working in intramural sports in undergrad, going to
Right.
get their GA, working in an office as a GA, and then ultimately going to be a pro staff. Um, that's kind of the normal route that people would go.
Yeah.
So if you are in college, your goal, if you're wanting to do this, is to be involved in an intramural sports program, um, and do that side of things. But at the end of the day, just apply.
Yeah.
If you're truly like, hey, I like sports, I like working with people, it's an easy job to apply to because every university looks for something different.
Right.
The requirements for this job are going to look completely different, at TCU, at Texas Tech,
Right.
Georgia, at Minnesota, whatever it is. They're going to look completely different, and so at the end of the day, just apply.
Yeah. I mean, and that goes with anything, just like mess around, find out kind of.
Take a chance. Yeah,
Yeah,
the worst they can say is no, right?
exactly. Um, and then would you say that there's like a non-traditional way and a traditional way to get into this? Like with your background, you have like a turf science thing and you ended up this way, but like, what is the difference?
Yeah, I would argue, I would say that the traditional route is a lot more niche, right?
Right.
And so being involved in that intramural sports program going to get your GA, going into the professional field is 80% the route that people take.
Right.
Um, the difference being you're going to get the experience having all of that in your undergrad and your grad
Yeah.
work. You get that experience of what campus rec is.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if you just apply on a whim and get it, there's this massive learning curve of working for a university, working in student affairs, kind of navigating that world that
Right.
you kind of already get as an undergrad in a GA somewhere. Um, the learning curve is a lot less, and so you're easier to kind of hit the ground running, as opposed to just applying on a whim, getting it, and you're like, "Whoa, this is
Yeah.
crazy." This
Yeah.
university,
That adds up.
yeah.
Um, and what does someone have to be good at and like doing to be good at the job, do you think?
Organization is key.
Yeah.
You have to stay organized. I mentioned this earlier. We have 14,000 students that play in our programs. We've got leagues and divisions that are upwards of 100 to 300 teams. Um, Managing 200 students, it takes a lot of organization, and it takes staying on top of that,
Yeah.
to be able to be good at this job. Um, the other piece of that is customer service, learning how to deal with people.
That can be
And
hard.
yeah, and so I had a student the other day, one of our badminton students, came into my office, and he was in here for an hour, and we just couldn't see eye to eye on an issue
Yeah.
that he had, and it was not easy. And so the customer service piece is huge. And so that's something that even if you're not good at to start out with, it's something
Yeah.
that you're going to learn very quickly.
You're gonna have to be
Uh,
good at it.
yeah, because the 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 view of your program is essentially what people think of it when they walk through the
Right.
door. And so having that customer service piece is huge.
And then I guess how long does it take to be really good at the job with that customer service piece and stuff like that?
Depends on factors, depends on the people.
Right.
No, I mean, I've been doing this for 5 years, and I feel like I'm at a point where I've kind of mastered it in a way.
Right.
And that's not to say that I'm like this great professional and I'm the best ever, but like I feel like I've
Like
done
I
a pretty good
am.
job here. And so I would argue that like in this role, probably 2-ish years, to be able to figure out students, to figure out life at a university,
Right.
figure out the student affairs way of doing things. It takes about 2 to 3 years.
Cool. And then I guess like 2 to 3 years, you're really good at it. But what is like the promotional path and like the highest position you can hold um in average at each level? So I know you talked about,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So and again, it's going to depend solely on the university. There's
right,
some universities that are considered stepping stones. So you get that first job, you earn it for a year, you get your feet wet, and then you're on to bigger and better things.
right,
There's other jobs, there's other universities like A&M that I want to stay here forever, right? And so it's a
yeah.
great place to be, and it's a great place to work, and they take care of us. And so, I've been in this role as an entry level role essentially for the last 5-6 years,
Oh
but
wow.
it's great, right? I get treated really well. My boss and I, yes, he's got a better title than me, but like at the end of the day, we're doing a lot of the same things and running this program together, and so that changes things. But
Right,
the traditional path is you start out as a coordinator for intramural sports, and then after some time there, you go up into an assistant director role or a director role
right,
of your specific program area, and then you inevitably move into an associate role, an associate director role, which oversees more than just that one area. So for us, it'd be, the coordinator of intramural sports, the assistant director of intramural sports, and then ultimately the associate director of programs, who oversees all of programming for rec sports. And then you get into the director role, which is the head honcho, for the department. And then if your goal is to get into student affairs,
yeah.
and take the next step, you would be essentially a vice president of student affairs.
And how much time do you think is at each level? Like 2, 3 years each? Or I mean, I know it depends, but
Yeah, it depends. I would say the coordinator level is probably 2 or 3 years, and then you're looking at an AD position is probably 5. And then for associates, you usually have to have about 10 to 15 years of experience.
wow.
and then the director role is even more after that. So
Yeah.
a lot of people don't make it to the director role. There's one director of rec sports at a college campus,
Yeah.
and so it's a challenging piece, but you got to put in the time, especially in that assistant director level and the associate
Yeah.
director level.
That adds up. And then talking about adding up, I know money can be a touchy subject, but like, what would you say is the average salary for someone at your level? It can be super broad.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna give you super broad, so that way people can't pinpoint what they think I'm.
yeah.
No, again, it depends on the university. It depends on cost of living, things like that. But somebody in my realm will make anywhere from about 40 to 75.
Okay.
And
Cool.
again, that's strictly dependent on university, where you are, things like that. So
Yeah. How good you are, you know.
sure, yeah, we can play with that too.
And then when people move on past like the direct path, what kind of work do they often go into?
Yeah, essentially people can springboard into anything, and that's the cool part about
Oh, that's
us,
cool.
is that um, there's so many skills that you learn in this job, and in rec sports in general, that transition to other jobs
Yeah.
outside of rec sports.
Yeah.
So there really isn't this like common theme of, oh, I've worked as a coordinator and assistant director in intramurals or in rec
Yeah.
sports, and I'm in the next path is here. It's so broad. Like I know people that have gone on to be lawyers. I know people that have gone into medical sales. I know that people like everybody has gone in different directions
Yeah.
when they leave the field, and that's the coolest piece is that they've developed the skills in intramural sports, working professionally in
Yeah.
intramural sports, to be able to go and do other things.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. And I like that it doesn't like put you in a box, it seems like.
It does not, and that's the cool thing.
And then what books, resources, programs, certifications would you recommend to someone wanting to get into this profession? And are there any ones that you would not recommend?
So I'm gonna give you maybe one thing that people can do. That's no efficient. Like at the end of the day, we are struggling nationally,
Yeah.
to have officials in sports. And so if there's any inkling of like, oh, this sounds really cool to do, the next best thing is to go officiate.
Yeah.
And go to your local high school chapter, to local little league, whatever it could be, and to get signed up and go. And so that's one certification that helps tremendously in this program
Yeah.
is or in this field is to be an official and to know how to officiate.
Yeah.
Again, I'm supervising 200 students, and they have to know how to officiate. And so if I'm sitting up there at the front of the room teaching them how to officiate and I've never done it
Yeah.
before, it makes it really, really, really difficult to have that trust of like, hey,
Yeah.
Kaulin knows what he's talking about, right? And so the one thing I will say is go officiate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you're gonna do anything, go officiate. Is there anything that you would not recommend doing?
No, again, this
Okay.
is so there's so many open doors here, which is the coolest piece to this,
Yeah.
that nothing is going to hurt.
And that's enough said about that. We just need people to officiate and do anything, I
Yep.
guess. Kind of wrapping up, what would you tell your younger self, who was just getting started in this profession?
Yeah. A lot. Well, take care of yourself. And I think that's something that
Yeah.
we've gotten away from, in a way, as a society. But yeah, taking care of myself was a big thing. As a GA,
Yeah.
little side story, I came into college, I came into my GA ship in 2017 with about 140 pounds. And the stress of being a graduate assistant, and I make that sound stressful, it's not. But just like the want and the need to like do well and be so
Yeah.
hard on myself, um, I ended up I ended up ending my GA ship, which is like 2 years, at about 180. And so not taking care of myself, not taking care
Yeah.
of my body, not taking care of my mental health was huge. And so that transitioned a little bit into my professional where
Yeah.
I started as a professional. And so for me, it was getting back on the track of taking care of yourself and realizing that, yeah, at the end of the day, you work 40 hours. And if you have a to do list,
Yeah.
there are things on that to do list that can wait till tomorrow or the next week. right? And so not taking
Which,
things home
yeah.
and stressing out about your job when
Hmm.
and being so hard on yourself. So me, it's
Yeah.
all about taking care of yourself. And so like I mentioned earlier, there's a break every day that I take. It's about an hour and a half, and it's getting my mind right, getting my body right,
Right.
healthy, doing the things that I can um, to then be able to perform at a higher level here in the office.
I would tell my younger self that too. It's hard, but you do have to take care of yourself because if you're not working, then like how will your job work? And your job will just be passed on to the next person. So that's great advice.
Exactly.
Um, and a hard lesson to learn.
It is. It is. Yeah, it took me until like year three, my professional realm, to be like, oh, this is impacting my life. I was
Yeah.
26, 27 at that point, and I was like, man, this is impacting my life. So
Yeah.
it's a good lesson.
And where can people connect with you if they're interested in learning more?
Yeah. So I've got a LinkedIn. LinkedIn, if you search Kaulin Andric, I'm one of the few. I spell my name kind of weird. So at the end of the day, it's going to be pretty easy to find. And then I've got Instagram as well. And then ultimately, I have on the Rec Sports website for Texas A&M Rec Sports. I'm on there. Shoot me an email. Connect there.
That's awesome. Let's go. And Colin, thank you so much for all of your insights and joining us at the Job Dictionary podcast today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Bye bye.
You just got one episode closer to learning about the world of jobs out there. To explore the rest of our career categories and find your best fit, go to jobdictionary.com to sign up for the beta users waitlist. Then subscribe here to find the next episodes coming out this week. And as always, drop us a comment, review, or message to let us know how we could better attune our episodes to your specific needs. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Threads, Pinterest, and wherever else you're on socials to go get our short, snappy preview reels that expose you to new job options every day. Because here at Job Dictionary, we believe your big aha moment can be just one scroll away. Go check it out and get out there. Cheers!